This topic now is about UI commands. UI commands, it's a programming topic. It's about the technical way to build a user interface in SAP. Even though, even if we are not interested in deep programming information, knowing the basics of the UI commands concept is useful for debugging because it shows a lot of times, and it's just quite important to know what it is. So let's see this with an example. So this is the same program we have been using in other videos, the SE81 transaction. So this is the code for that program. It's a simple code, small one, and we can see here this subroutine called user command, and we see this with this kind of naming very often in SAP programs. So it doesn't have to have this name, but it will usually have something related. And another thing that is typical is this case statement with a long list of possible values. So this conditional has many entry points, and this is a command. It's just a string. For example, has is just a string that identifies a command, and a command is associated to each button in the toolbar. For example, each one of these buttons has a command associated to it, and also in the menus. So each menu, like these things here and here, they have a command. So when we go and choose a menu option, it will set a global variable with a command name, which could be something like this, add, and then it will trigger the event to do the processing of the UI command. And then it will jump to a code like this. So that's the way the user interfaces react to the command events. And why is this important? It's mainly important because we get to this kind of code very often when we start debugging with the /h, which just will stop debugging in the next command that we trigger. So let's see this with an example. So let's start SE81, and then we are going to trigger debugging with /h and pressing this button here. So now we are in the debugger, and as we can see now, it's at user command. This is the processing of user commands immediately after we press the command in the UI. So if we go now, it will, in this case, it will call a subroutine that will handle the commands. So it's not necessarily just a single block of code with all the possible commands in a program, but we can have many levels with many subroutines handling a subset of the commands. And actually, in this case, it will also have a longer list of processing in this part of the code, and will continue to a different level, sub-level that will call the code that we have seen before. So I'm going to just quickly go to the place of the code where it will call the next step, which is this user callback. So getting into this section, and then it will be another level yet. So now we are exactly in the same code that we were seeing before, so where more processing of the commands happens. And looking at the call stack, we see that there are several levels of processing commands. That's just because of the technical way the user interface is designed. But the main point to take here, and that's the message that is more important, it's that we will often see this kind of case statements with a long list of commands. And we are just interested in finding the subsection of the command that we are investigating. and then we can ignore all the rest. And the command is stored in this global variable. So here we have the command value, and this will be matched into the conditional statements, and then when it matches, it will go for processing of that specific command. So let's see in this case. It will go out of the loop in this because it was not processed there, but then there is this section here. If command is this one, which it is, then it will go and process. And that's the main part to know. When we do /h, we will get to this kind of code, and then we can filter out almost everything. We are just interested in going through this part of the code until the specific program logic for the command that we are investigating. And often this could be intimidating because it can be confusing, but after some practice we can just quickly go through this part and ignore it, and then land in the part of the code that we are really interested in investigating, the specific logic of our specific problem, because this is just kind of the stuff needed to build the user interface, and typically the problem is not there, it's on other part of program logic.